Be bothered at all. They're very worried. They're very worried indeed, because they know it will have an effect. Yes, I will give way.
I'm grateful for the right honourable gentleman's contribution, but does he not agree this is a backbench motion? This has no effect upon government policy, and it is just futile.
We represent the electorate of the United Kingdom. Resolutions passed in this House, I can tell the honourable gentleman, having spent 13 years sitting on the Treasury bench, where they emanate from back benches or front benches, make a difference, and this resolution will, if it's passed, make a difference. Now, if
Matthew Offord.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I hadn't actually anticipated that I was going to be called to speak, so I am grateful for that. The proposal for this House to recognise Palestine's statehood is not only premature, but is also misguided. An affirmative vote tonight would be nothing more than a propaganda victory for those who wish to bypass the mediation of the peace process in favour of international institutions like the United Nations, where the Palestinian Authority enjoys an automatic majority. 3 years ago, President Abbas made it explicit that the attempt to unilaterally assert statehood through the UN was to ensure, and I quote, would pave the way for the internationalisation of the conflict as a legal matter, not only a political one. It would also pave the way for us, the Palestinian Authority, to pursue claims against Israel at the United Nations human rights treaty bodies and the International Court of Justice. And I finish the quote. The Palestinian Authority is seeking to create opportunities for new diplomatic and legal fronts on the conflict with Israel that enables a distraction, an alternative and an escape route from the bilateral principle entailed in the Oslo Accords and subsequent diplomatic frameworks. I won't at the moment. And the proposers of this motion are aiding these efforts and are turning their backs on the peace process, and that is not a proposal that I can accept. The Middle East process is underpinned by several key documents, and this hasn't been addressed tonight. These prohibit the unilateral diplomatic action this motion would allow, and which the same documents deem to undermine the prospect of a negotiated settlement. In 1993, the PLO committed itself to a declaration, and again I quote, all outstanding issues relating to the permanent status will be resolved through negotiations. This was followed 2 years later in the Oslo II agreement, and it again said the PLO said they would not take any step that would change the status of the Palestinian territories pending the outcome of the permanent status negotiations. This principle has a binding validity on all parties and has been subsequently, not at the moment, and has been a binding principle and subsequently reaffirmed as the only acceptable basis for a resolution.
Matthew Offord.
Mr. Speaker. This is also an agreement to which our government, the United Kingdom, as part of the European Union and the Quartet, is a signatory. Therefore, this motion is asking the UK government to break its commitment to the peace process. That is not a proposal that I can accept. A negotiated two-state agreement would also resolve other issues, including borders, security arrangements, and Israel's right to exist by all. But this motion would not allow recognition of the Palestinian state that would not even recognise or accept Israel's 1967 borders. So the former Foreign Secretary is calling for the 67 borders. If we had acceded to that request, that means the Golan Heights would be in the hands of Syria, or in fact, nowadays, in ISIL. And that means that Israel would not be able to continue to exist, and I could not accept that. Similarly, the concept of the 48 armistice lines should become a border with a terror state is another irresponsible policy, and is something which the Parliament of any liberal democracy should not be involved with in any way. The battle which Britain and our allies are part of is to stop the spread of fundamentalist Islamist control over the Levant, all of which Israel is part, not to speed it along. Go ahead.
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for giving way, but is he aware that when I intervened on his right honourable gentleman, the member for Kensington, I was careful in my language and spoke about any borders being based on the 1967 resolutions, and that's no different from that which is contained in the final page of the roadmap, which was endorsed by the government of Israel, amongst others.
Grateful for that clarification. Recognition of Palestine appears attractive and is considered to be the first step towards the internationalisation and perceived legitimisation which could allow diplomatic and legal challenges to Israel through organisations which again are perceived to be sympathetic to Palestinian grievances. The recognition of Palestine would produce significant setbacks for the existing peace process and is bound to elicit a retrenchment in the position of Israel when they have previously agreed statements that have produced land swaps to peace. Most infamously, this occurred in 2005 when Israel undertook the unilateral move to withdraw from Gaza. And members can all remember what happened. Over 11,000 rockets have been fired from the Gaza Strip by terrorists into Israel. 5 million Israelis are currently living under the threat of rocket attacks, with more than 500,000 Israelis have less than 60 seconds to find shelter after a rocket is launched. This means that people in the biggest cities of Israel, including Tel Aviv, Jerusalem and Haifa, are all at risk. On the other hand, the negotiated peace deals such as the Egypt and Israel peace treaty in 1979 and the Israel and Jordan peace treaty in 1994 are examples of land being relinquished in return for stable peace negotiations. But the same did not occur at Camp David negotiations in 2000. The proposal to establish an independent Palestinian state in virtually all of the West Bank and Gaza, along with a Palestinian capital in East Jerusalem, was rejected because the alternative condition that the PA declare an end to the conflict as part of the final agreement. Consequently, the proposal for the recognition of Palestine statehood without the fundamental aspects of final status negotiations that are coupled with a reciprocal agreement which relinquishes further claims over lands, properties and settlements, the right to return and access to Jerusalem is premature.
Well, my honourable friend allow me? My honourable friend says that he hadn't intended to speak, and he seems to be making up for this by reading at great speed from an Israeli government handout. Can we at least establish these ground rules, that those of us who will support this motion are still firm friends of Israel and defend Israel's right to security, but we also believe in justice for the Palestinian people?
Well, I'm grateful for another helpful intervention, but I can assure my honourable friend that it's certainly not an Israeli government press release. I hear one of the other honourable members chuntering away from there. Never mind. However, it is vital that we achieve any peace through a negotiation and mutual agreement between Israel and the Palestinian Authority, not through unilateral moves or preemptive recognition. Formal progress in peace deals has only ever been achieved through bilateral talks, which remain the way forward for the peace process. No credible peace-building initiative has ever emerged from the UN General Assembly. Both the UK government and the Conservative Party have been clear that bilateral negotiations are the only path to a stable peace. I understood that was the Labour Party's policy, but it seems today they've been whipped to vote for this motion because the leader of the Labour Party can't make his own mind up over Israel. Members of Parliament should vote against any unilateral declaration of Palestinian statehood, whilst making clear that they support the creation of a Palestinian state through direct bilateral negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. It is a great concern that the amendment submitted by the Right Honourable Member has come forward, as I felt that the Right Honourable Member for Aberconway's amendment was more than adequate. The diplomatic process, realities on the ground, international law and not least the UN system itself are as likely to suffer serious negative consequences if members accede to the Palestinian attempt to remove this search for a two-state solution from the established bilateral framework. It is vital that we send a clear message that such an approach, which the Palestinian leadership has pursued since 2010, is a dead end, at best a costly distraction, and we should vote against the motion tonight.